Oof. Let's see. Hello, my friends. Hello, those of you lovers of liberty. We begin this thing again of ours as we wait for Facebook to join us. Those of you over on D Live and Twitch, welcome. Thank you for attending. Great to see you over there. And Stargirl D, Eddie Powell. Great to see you, Eddie. Just give it a second or two before I bring Bruce in just to touch base with you. I'm going to go through a quick recap about myself and Bruce's Twitter. I have a follow-up tweet from Grania, who we spoke with earlier this morning. A lot of video drops there today. Quite a busy day today. Dolores' speech is back up on YouTube. Going to leave it there for a while, but it is backed up on BitChute if you're not, or if you haven't seen it, or if it does get taken down. It is there, and it will be, I think it is also over on Twitch. For those of you inquiring and those of you over on D Live, I haven't set the replay function yet. Still trying to figure that out over there, but I will get to it. I hope you're enjoying, as I say, the new platform. So, yeah, I'm going to bring Bruce in a second. Before I do, as we always do, I'm always ought to remind you, please don't forget our friends, the Little Farmer, World Wide Web, thelittleffarmer.ie. We love our enzymes so much, we keep them alive. Wheatgrass and barley grass, mighty shots. Small wonder they're so good. One wheatgrass shot is equal to 1 kilogram of your leafy green veg. Barley grass juice is full of antioxidants. Just a shake and shoot, she says. A shake and shoot. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, and I hope you've had a very productive, and I hope you haven't let things get on top of you too much. I know sometimes with everything that's going on, myself and Bruce were just discussing it before we came on here. You know, the dynamic outside the front door is slowly beginning to change. Liz joins us from Facebook. How are you, Liz? Silmiata and Nobby McNoob. Also Karen joining us from Drogheda. Great to see you, Karen. Thank you for joining us. And Patricia. Also Roisin from Belfast. You might touch in with us about the protest later today. Myself, we're going to touch on that now in a second. And without further ado, let me bring in my good friend, Dr. Bruce Scott. Bruce, how are you? Thanks. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm all right, thank you. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you back. I just gave us a sort of a brief sort of synopsis how we might approach tonight's discussion. I know you have got a lot to bring to the table as well, but I want to quickly first just to touch in with my Twitter handle first. I was tagged there by Grania, and there's a video response to the PSNI's over exuberance at the Belfast. Let me bring it into play here for you now. At the Belfast protest that Grania and others attended over the weekend. I'm not going to play the video over there because it is the BBC, but I will link as myself and Bruce talk. Actually, I can't play it here, but Facebook you won't hear it. Only D Live and Twitch. But I'll drop the link to it there. But as you can see through the subtitles there at the bottom, in essence, the gentleman here is saying that when the senior police officer was speaking with the majority of people there, the organizers of the rally, he was saying that the police officers were pretty much well on board. And then 15 minutes later, he came back down, and actually the police officer said to him, he said, like, you know, I quite actually agree with some of the points, you know, but I've got my job. I've got a job that I need to do. And 15 minutes later, got a new directives, and he said, this is now an illegal gathering. And without so much as a how's your father, this started taking place. You can see the video footage playing down in the background behind me. Like I say, I'm not going to play the audio for the strike. And as the gentleman there is continuing on there was no recognized media. They're not here at all for the people of this country. And this tweet was directed, Bruce, at Stephen Nolan, who I noticed just kind of catching up with the pace of things up in the north of Ireland. He's actually been going around harassing people coming out of shops, saying, do you not care, shaming them and dragging a camera crew around with them as well. Just absolutely shaming them, Bruce. Well, crazy stuff. But like I said, I'll drop the link for Grania's tweet over there, and you should catch up with the tweet that she highlights there, and just to bring you up to date with the protest. And Bruce, by way of not to leave you out of the fold, I also have your one there, but I'll bring that up there. Let me say what struck you most this week on your odyssey over in Scotland.
Well, it's this. Well, the shame and it's very blatant. The intimidation with the cops. Because I know, I remember Trafalgar Square a couple of weeks ago. The police got very heavy-handed, and then so they're ramping up the intimidation. There was a rally in Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I couldn't go to it, but the police put an announcement the day before, basically saying that it's illegal, essentially, and we will be using force, proportionate force. And Nicola Sturgeon made some noise to say, us to say these can't go ahead. I mean, it's huge intimidation. And she uses all the words of compliance and following the rules, and it's very dictatorial and authoritarian. And but what I find, this war of words, it feels like it's much like a war of words. Something really struck me. What's happening in Scotland is the intimidation, subtle intimidation. It's part of my job. I listen to the words that people say and the way they say them, and you can get a hint of kind of, you don't need much training to do it. But if you sit with people long, you become very sensitized to it, or very sensitive to it and aware of it. And some of the messages that are coming from shops and transport companies, and I had a bit of a Twitter battle on Twitter with Lothian buses. Basically, Lothian buses. I'll get the pic. I don't know if I could show you the picture, but yeah. I'll read it. I'll read it out. They, on their ticket, when you go to, someone sent me this. When you get where is it? Screenshot. When you get a ticket from the bus, after you pay your ticket, it's got like some information on it, and the information says face coverings are mandatory. Scottish government legislation requires that customers must wear a face covering when travelling on public transport, unless they are exempt. Yeah. We are asking all customers who cannot wear a face covering to consider carrying proof of exemption. Further information can be found. So I sent a message to them. I said, in public Twitter, I said, what's going on here? Why are you asking people to do this? To consider wearing, getting lanyards or whatever. And where is it? So they said, "Oh, can you give us a direct message?" So I said, "Okay." And they sent me a long message, and they said, "Oh, apologies if my tweet was unclear or caused any confusion. We are doing everything we can to ensure customers are aware of the government's instruction and the responsibility they have ensuring they are complying in full with wearing face coverings on public transport, unless exempt due to disability or on medical grounds. We are aware that for some people, they will be unable to wear face coverings for various reasons. The Scottish Government has advised that those exempt under the guidance and regulations do not have to prove their exemption and should not be made to wear a face covering or denied access to public transport, shops or public places. We ask for people to be aware of the exemptions and to treat each other with kindness." You can read more here. And so it was just blah, blah, blah. And essentially I said, "Thank you for your reply." I says, "But why are you encouraging people to consider using exemptions or lanyards or a sticker or a badge?" I said, "What is your motive and goal of encouraging people to consider using exemption products? If there's no need to use them, why would you ask someone to consider using them?" No reply. I've been waiting for days now. No reply from them.
She's at the computer. The computer says, "No, that's a logical fallacy. I don't think that works. That doesn't follow the guidelines. COVID-19." There is no rebuttal. There isn't a rebuttal. There isn't even, a consistency in the logic of, and when you break it down. But she cannot take it any further. She's stuck at that. Even the press secretary, there is no response after a week. Maybe there's a deluge of eminent psychologists, questioning the same thing, and she's trying to catch up with your good self, Bruce. What do you think?
Well, it seems to be in other places. Another YouTuber, actually, Photo Via off. She sent me a video. She was talking to a woman outside I think it was a mobile phone shop. Did a sign saying, you have to wear a mask to come in, and they have a guard basically at the door, and it's all set up for intimidation. They're saying, oh yeah, okay, you don't have to wear one, but we're reminding you have to wear. But everyone knows the masks are mandatory, and everyone. But why is everyone making such a big song and dance about considering wearing lanyards? Why would the only way one would consider wearing a lanyard, surely, if you've got to be threatened or shamed or hassled in public. That's the only reason. So essentially, what they're saying is, well, you could be hassled, you could be shamed, you could be assaulted.
Yeah. Why do you think?
It's
sorry, Bruce. Yeah. Why do you think people cannot make the analogy? I mean, I'm sure the majority, most of us do, even as you describe it, the lanyard wearing, the identification, the yellow star, that it all goes back, to separate, to shame, to exclude, to segregate, and again further division, and it's enforced by guilting the people, to say, to actually follow lies, even when the truths are even when the evidence it totally does not corroborate their position. Sorry, I know I'm stuttering a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is there's a complete snap in the logic circuits. What they appear to know to be true, that and what you're describing just doesn't work, doesn't make sense. So they're just going to reinforce the propaganda because it's easier rather than standing out. I know that was very long-winded. I do apologize, Bruce, but yeah.
I think that essentially what these messages are saying to me is they're dying to tell people they have to wear a mask. They're desperate in their if they were given an extra inch, they would be holding people down, putting the masks on them. They're trying to make it out, we're all friendly and we want to make people safe, but there's an aggression behind these intimidations, and from bus tickets reminding you, you could wear a lanyard. I mean, as I mentioned before we started, I was stopped on the train. Some guard said to me, "Where's your mask?"
Yeah.
I said, I don't need one. He goes, "Oh, you do, it's regulation." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "No, if you don't need one, you don't." He says, "Oh, I'm just doing my job." I said, "No, it's illegal for you to ask me." "I'm just doing my job." I said, and he started running away down the carriage. And I said, "You don't have to ask. You're not allowed to ask me, But that's not making my journey safe, It's not making people who are not wearing masks journeys. They're doing that to people without wearing a mask. That's making their life a misery. ScotRail say when you walk into the train station or any train station in Scotland, there's tannoy announcements, saying wear a mask, social distance, blah blah blah. But some people don't wear a mask or treat them kindly. But they're not treating people kindly. They're treating people who are not wearing masks like second-class citizens. And it's deliberate. It's drip, 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 making their life a bloody misery. And it's keeping others safe, Bruce. Someone's just commented. It's debatable. I mean, all the scientists are coming out today are talking about the harm of wearing masks, the bacteria and the fibers that can get into the lungs for wearing these. The ordinary cloth masks. These are homemade ones.
I know there's friends subscribers and people that messaging me, and I don't know if it's Liz. Liz might be in the conversation there as well. Actually, has a condition derived from excessive mask wearing. The fibers coming out from the mask have been traveling up. When you exhale, and the most, leaky point for the airflow was beside the eyes and exhaling through the sides. But the constant buildup of the microfibers from the mask and the constant irritation has actually infected the tear ducts, and I'm sure there's all the poor children. When I think we were only mentioning it just before the show about, me saying I'd seen the kids coming out of the school, and the majority of them not wearing, which I was quite pleased with, but the one or two that are wearing it clearly as a fashion accessory, and from the classroom all the way back to the household. And I wonder, and I think, do they have their grandparents living at home with them, and it's just everything is now ultra sterile to protect, and the guilt that places on the child then as well, to be, constantly, fearing for the death of the grandparents or being responsible for that. You know what I mean? That would have an effect, I think.
Yeah. I think for young children to be witnessing this in society, considering what the data says of the seriousness of this of COVID, the actual threat of it, and for to be seeing everyone wearing masks, I think it is a form of subjugation, because I mean there's no real evidence to suggest it's stopping the spread of COVID. Of course, it's not stopped the spread of influenza this year, masks or social distancing. With some of the stats I've seen in Scotland, I've noticed suddenly in Canada, for example, influenza in 1 year has been eradicated. Pretty much. Very strange.
We shouldn't laugh.
And there's some other data coming, worldwide data with influenza. They seem the books. You can't. It's very difficult to know what's going on now. They talk about fake news before COVID ever happened. We're now in the era of fake news. It's very difficult to even trust the statistics that are coming out, because like what is being cooked and what is not being cooked. I'm trying to think if there's something else I was going to say, but
well, I wanted to steer it over there, Bruce. Quickly, we go back to your Twitter account, and I mentioned it to you as well, also before we start, and hopefully, those of you viewing over on Facebook and on YouTube later on, you can make it out. But Bruce retweeted Ivor Cummins at Fat Emperor, who's doing exceptional work over here, another huge content creator over here. But I tweeted out this morning, there is a petition going around for RTE to invite Ivor Cummins on to present the data that he has been presenting. One of his video productions went viral and got over 1.5 million views of the account. And with his very calm and reasoned, measured way that he has, just extrapolates the data. And, as we say, here's what it's like on the ground, and here's what the theoretical models of NEFIT and the United Kingdom equivalent are saying. And what the government are trying to impose upon us, people can clearly see now that the data doesn't represent that. And Ivor clearly puts that out there as well today. But Ivor was tweeting out there, he says, doctors rising in Ireland demanding open scientific debate and a return to proportionality and the realistic cost benefit discussions in Ireland's top newspaper today. Please retweet. So there is movement among the, shall we say, the upper echelon of the professional class, the white collar class, starting to push back, because they can see that, hang on a minute, government is getting out of control.
Yeah, it's they're dismissing out of hand any scientific challenge to the government narrative. I mean, I took it upon myself. I thought, right, I'm going to email my MP. My local MP's John Lamont and the Scottish Borders, and I had a few points, about vaccines, for example. I mean, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, despite what the Daily Mail wrote about me a few months ago. I'm an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I've had vaccinations. My children's had certain vaccinations, and of course, there's nothing wrong with vaccinations in that regard. But as long as they're safe and there's been research done on it, and so I wrote to my MP. I said, that was one of my points, was You know, I'm concerned about this pushing of a vaccination for a virus which is 99.5% of people will be fine in society. Under 60, you know, there's no real thing, and because it's such a young, there's not much research being done in it, you know, in terms of time, length, and randomized controlled trials, and in the vaccine study, haven't done, you know, they don't know what the long-term side effects will be. So I pointed some of these facts out, and one was a long email, and it was like I was speaking into thin air. He replied back, blah blah blah. The vaccine people are great, and we need to do this. We need to keep people safe until there's a vaccine, and then the vaccine can keep us safe. But of course, you know, that's again, it's ignoring the science, because we've had the flu vaccine for many years, and people get very ill with the flu vaccine, and it's not very effective. I don't know what, it's various studies, 50% effective, 10% effective, for, you know, and there's various strains of influenza. I mean, my mother, for example, she ended up in hospital a few years ago after taking the flu vaccine, and she was in a ward. She just told me the other day, she was in a ward. All the people in the ward were people her age, roughly her age, and they'd all had the flu vaccine, and they were all in hospital, really ill. I mean, I think some people died because of it. So I mean, there's a risk. There's a risk. I'm not saying the flu vaccine's terrible, but there's a risk. And because we don't know the risks, why would you want to impose it upon the whole of society? You know, the kind of Bill Gates utopian master plan. Well, you may want to offer it to people who are vulnerable if they want to take it. You know, if old people. But it's just this. It's a non-scientific, and Nicola Sturgeon tweeted out today. She's tweeted out like something about we don't know. We're not certain. We don't know. We haven't got certainty in these things, and you know we can get things wrong. And I replied to her, I went, yes. You don't know all. You haven't got all the answers, and many people disagree with you, and I disagree with you. So why do they impose their version of truth? You know, because it's authoritarian, it's dictatorial. We're not living in a free world now, and so it's the abuse of word, the abuse of language with intimidation, and the abuse of science. You know, it's disgraceful, really.
But I just want to turn to back to another one of your retweets there from Sandra Whedon. And we're going back to the police force in the United Kingdom. And she says, apropos of my earlier tweet concerning policemen not isolating the orders, some officers have been told that they may not need to obey the self-isolate alerts generated by the apps when downloaded to their personal phones. So because they're under so much strain, they now have been told to ignore the apps and carry on, you know. So again, it's whether the police officers are questioning it themselves, they're committed to a job, they're going to force. I mean, there must be a vast majority of them that will just carry it out with glee, or not a vast majority, but a certain proportion would probably are, you know, looking forward to putting the jackboot in. But there must be a vast majority of them in there going, this just isn't right, you know. Or will they just comply and just get on with it?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it was interesting. I'll talk about this in a minute. There's something I want to talk about. But yeah, regarding the police, I mean, at the last Edinburgh protest, apparently the police were talking to some of the protesters, and they were extremely nice, even though officially that it was an illegal gathering. Some of the protesters had very jovial and light-hearted banter. So, you know, so I mean, it's not all. Maybe not all the police are behind it as such. But interesting. Someone tweeted this out, and I'll try and get it up. Historical. Where is it? I hope I can find it. Or maybe I took a photograph of it, didn't I? Here it is. It was a book. It's a book by Christopher Browning. It's called Ordinary Men: The Reserve Police Battalion and the Final Solution in Poland. So in the Second World War, and this is the little bit on the back about it. This helps us to understand better than we did before, not only what they did to make the Holocaust happen, but also how they were transformed psychologically from the ordinary men of the title into active participants in the most monstrous crime in human history. This Ordinary Men is the true story of Reserve Police Battalion 101 of the German Order Police, which was responsible for mass shootings as well as roundups of Jewish people for the deportation to Nazi death camps in Poland in 1942. Browning argues that most of the men of the RPP, the RPB, what's the name of the unit, 101, were not fanatical Nazis, but ordinary middle-aged working-class men who committed these atrocities out of a mixture of motives, including the group dynamics of conformity, deference to authority, and role adaptation, and the altering of moral norms to justify their actions. Very quickly, three groups emerged within the battalion: a core of eager killers, a plurality who carried out their duties reliably without diminishing the murderous efficiency of the battalion whatsoever. What's it? So it was a plurality who carried out their duties reliably but without initiative, and a small minority who evaded participation in the acts of killing without diminishing the murderous efficiency of the battalion whatsoever. While the book discusses a specific reserve unit during World War II, the general argument Browning makes is that most people are susceptible to the pressure of group setting and committing actions they would never do of their own volition. So it's quite chilling. And regard to the police not downing doing the app thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I made some light-hearted tweet to that person, I think, saying, "Oh, maybe they're short-staffed." I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
I wonder what the overtime bill at the moment is. They must be creaming it in.
Or maybe it was toxic masculinity that so they've got such bravado. It doesn't matter about COVID-19. We'll just go out and do our work. I mean, which is possible. I mean, it's good to be quite brave, but
there's another brave person there, and Margaret just saying. Margaret's over in Scotland, where you are too. My daughter and I are the only two in the supermarket tonight without face nappies on again. So and they have to be commended and congratulated, not to stand firm. Yeah. You're standing behind your own understanding, your own epistemology, what you hold to be true. Regardless. And people are walking around, they're lying to themselves. And a great majority will never shift from that position, because it's hard to believe that you've fell for a lie and that you were tricked. Nobody wants to, come out and admit, which would be great if they did, and go, look, that's terrible, or understood that you are being misled and misspoken to and propagandized in ways and means that you do understand, but they just don't care. This generation that are born into their prison, they'd have no understanding of what life was like before technology really took a hold of it. And just by agreeing to the user service agreements, have opened up their world for the fact of, having their face in and being allowed to access the filters that keep them forever young, and just giving up privacy. And it's coming home to roost now because they're so compliant.
Yeah, it's just as a side issue, there were also some nurses as well, actually. And they went to start their shift. I can't remember what hospital it was in, but it was somewhere in England. But they were saying, "Oh, by the way, put your phones in a locker, because we need you for tomorrow's shift. Because if you get tracked and traced, and we need you. We can't." They were generally short-staffed, and if they got caught out with the track and trace or whatever, they'd be really short-staffed. So I mean, it's impractical. They thought it was saving the NHS, but it's obviously it's making things very, very difficult, and so. But when this track and trace thing, become very sinister, Nicola Sturgeon today was asked on the daily briefing by a journalist about is Police Scotland being given details or access to the track and trace system for enforcement? And I think she kind of denied it. But there's an article in the Times. It's basically stated that police do have access if it's a kind of criminal matter, if the person's not isolating, they have to go and enforce it.
Have you been informed, or are you aware of that bill I spoke about during the week was spoke about in the Houses of Parliament? I'm not sure if it's gone through. The Human Resources Intelligence Bill. Effectively, have you seen that? I mean, you're under that jurisdiction. That to me is just off the charts, and nobody's paying attention to it whatsoever. Well, from my perspective, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's chilling. I said my local MP, of course. I checked. He voted for the renewal of the Coronavirus Act a few weeks ago, and he voted for this new. Oh, my battery's running out here. I better switch on.
Well, I'll just fill that in there for you as well, because you're just that's grand. I'll just fill it to you as well. We had a host of politicians here who just signed the Two Mothers bill. I don't know if you remember them, Bruce. The Two Mothers, great scandal over here about the Catholic Church and the church's involvement in the burial of babies outside, which was completely unproven, and found to be fraudulent in every way, shape, or form. But that's not what the narrative is now. And you can forget about going back and correcting the record for so long now. People just won't do it because they're locked into it. But the records were due to be released for public consumption under the Freedom of Information Act, and a host of politicians, many of them with family connections going way back to that time of the state's involvement of the terrible crimes that were committed over there. The framing of the church has been every front and center for everyone's mind, but nobody really holds the state to account in its complicity of the forced adoptions, the terrible, giving away children over there, and everything that happened with the two babies. We don't have time to go straight through it. But my point being, politicians doing what politicians do to increase their powers or to isolate themselves, because the amount of corruption, it's one of my not one of my good friends today, but it said, look, it is what it is. We all know that it's corrupt. They says, well, it can't be corrupt if we all consent to the backhanders, and it is what it is. But now is the time now that we have to step out of that and go, we need to hold these people to account, because if people aren't held to account, it runs away with itself. And this is exactly what's happening there. Politicians hiding their nepotism with the two of them, as we say. But as you say, Bruce, going back to your point.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, my MP I mentioned, he voted for the Coronavirus Act to renew it, and all these for another 6 months, under the auspices of keeping us all safe. Is in his words. Well, it's the government. It's the whole government narrative keeping us safe. Yeah. And I pointed out to him. There was a rugby club in a town near here, and it's got a bar and social club and all that. It was shut down for 16 days because it had one case. And I pointed out that because of the margin of error for these tests, you can't shut a whole. You can't run an economy like that. But then I noticed he'd voted for this bloody crime intelligence bill, which is basically a bill to do away with your political opponents, shut them up at the very least, or intern them, or worse, violence. So he's not a representative of his constituency. He's basically an enemy of the constituency. He's not a friend of the people. He's willfully voting for destruction of his own constituency.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And willingly saying, "Well, I'm going to try and wanting to shut these people up if they object." People like me, it's then this. So consent. I've written a couple of articles which are in in press. So they're going to be hopefully published in a couple of places in the next.
I look forward to reading them and reading through them.
But I ended one of the articles, which I thought was very, and I suggested that politicians reflect on this. And one of them, I quoted the UNESCO Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights. Article 6 is on consent. It's very interesting reading. I've known about it for a while, but I just, I said, this is number one. Any preventative, diagnostic and therapeutic medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior, free and informed consent of the person concerned based on adequate information. The consent should, where appropriate, be expressed and may be withdrawn by the person concerned at any time and for any reason without disadvantage or prejudice. So we think about masks or vaccines, and these are therapeutic, preventative medical interventions. So under the UNESCO Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights, Article 6, why are the politicians mandating this?
We're at war, Bruce. My only answer: we are at war. Our government is clearly working against us in the long term. But people refuse to accept it. People refuse to see what it is, and they clap their jailers every night. They clap their jailers as they turn the key.
Yeah, and this is another one, number 2 in the list. Scientific research should be only carried out with prior, free, express, and informed consent of the person concerned. The information should be adequate, provided in a comprehensible form, and should include modalities of withdrawal of consent. Consent may be withdrawn by the person concerned at any time and for any reason without any disadvantage or prejudice. Exceptions to this principle should be made only in accordance with ethical and legal standards adopted by states, consistent with the principles and provisions set out in the Declaration in particular Article 27 and international human rights law. So all this about, because the vaccine is, for some vaccine experts, the guy Dr. Eden on Twitter, he talks about how essentially when they're proposing to rush this vaccine out, it won't be past the usual stage 3 of how a vaccine trial usually proceeds. So it's an experiment.
An experiment with indemnity. They're indemnified throughout the European region, all with indemnity. We will be the human guinea pigs in all of this. And even at the third, I think it was 30,000, or the volunteer test subjects, 2 have already presented with some myelitis. Live chat will probably let me know they're the correct terminology. And I think, it wasn't GlaxoSmithKline, I think it was Johnson & Johnson's approach. These are the people suffering the consequences, but they're still going to march on ahead. They're still going to mandate that we take the seasonal flu vaccine. And we've got conversations over here in DLive and Twitch talking about their parents taking it and being practically gone the next year. And I think there's a strong correlation, and I think we'll find that historically on review, that there's a direct correlation between those in Italy at the very onset of this that had the early injection of the coronavirus flu and then had the complication of the COVID that jumped in on top. And that will be a correlation between those two, I believe, in the retrospect or the historical review of it when we do look back.
Yeah, I remember I think it was Dolores Cahill who mentioned that, or maybe it was something. I forgot. There was a certain batch of flu vaccine that people in northern Italy received, which unfortunately, when they caught COVID, it contributed to this cytokine storm, which facilitated the kind of progression of COVID-19.
Just a quick one there, Bruce. Sorry, just Grania, one of our best. Sorry, they're all great subscribers. On the ball, just giving us the information from the north. That covert human intelligence source bill has passed 313 for 98 against. And effectively, and that gives the United Kingdom the power to commit criminal actions, including rape, torture, and murder. That, to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bruce. Go ahead.
It's basically Soviet Union, isn't it? Essentially, the there's a big debate on Twitter at the moment. Is it fascism we're going through, or is it communism? You know, but someone put it very good on Twitter. A guy I follow on Twitter, and he follows me. A guy, Michael Blair, his name is, from Scotland. I don't know if he watches the channel, but he said it's two cheeks of the same arse, essentially. You know what we're going through. But I mean, and I summed it up with the idea of that. You know, they're trying to destroy society. You know, like a communism, but they're trying to, turn it into something a better functioning society, like a kind of very regimented fascist state. So
Yeah.
two cheeks of the same arse, essentially. And but I mean, it's interesting. So the UNESCO's in the Nuremberg Code after the Second World War. I mean, it essentially talks about consent in the same terms as the UNESCO Code. And it was, of course, the Nuremberg Code was created guidelines for determining what constitutes a war crime. So essentially, you said it's a war. Well, in interpreting these guidelines, you would think it is a war crime,
Yeah.
And indeed, it was on UK Column today. Actually, there was an article on how the World Health Organization, the UN, and they're violating these conventions with voicing mandatory vaccines and lockdowns and masks and all that. They're violating these, and this is what this said in UK Column today. Yeah. And
makes a mockery of everything. It makes a mockery of everything that we're supposed to do. It's to society, that we all agree to the rules of democracy, or the equal application of law. It flies in the face. I don't know. Actually, do you know what? I don't allow the frustration to kick in. Go on. Sorry, Bruce. I'm interrupting your point.
There's, a lot of the human rights charities have been deadly silent, chillingly silent over the last few months. Amnesty International, which I've not been a fan of because of their silence on a lot of things recently. They've came out, actually. They've been very concerned about the care home situation in. I don't know if it's all over the place, but it's especially in UK. They're really concerned. They want an inquiry into the care home deaths, which is a very promising development, I think.
Well, we'll get the same over here. We will get tribunals and well, that's what they tried to play off. That's what happened during the cervical cancer debacle smeared, and it was just it was pigeonholed. There was a few fingers pointed, few tails wagged. Nobody really lost their position as such, and the main people that were at fault are exalted on high now as the medical gods that they are. And thank God for Superman, and thank God for everybody else and the politicians, and they're doing a great job. And we're considered the conspiracy theorists, and everybody's walking around with masks that quantifiably and scientifically can be proven are not effective for what they're told that they're being told to use them for, and are actually causing them harm. Bruce, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We've run over our time, if you don't mind. Anything planned exciting you want to let us know that you're happening in the week? I hope your homeschooling's going really well.
But the homeschooling going very well. I think it's a very interesting process. My son being out of that kind of institutional structure, this sort of being free to find his creativity. It's quite interesting to see. I mean, he used to come out of school, for example, quite miserable. In a bad, tired and ratty, and
yeah.
And he never said, "Oh, it was a great day." And to see the difference in that, it's been very encouraging. But as I said, I've got a couple of articles in the pipeline. One is entitled, if they keep the same titles, it's called "A Psychological Attack on the UK," and another article is called, where is it? It's called the cult of the brave new normal.
Oof.
So hopefully, I talk about in the cult of the brave new normal. I talk about how it's very cult-like behavior of the leaders, what they're doing to people, and this kind of the nonsense rules and regulations they get to in the changing of them. It's very much like how cults operate, but
Yeah.
it's a cultist in its kind of flavor. And
I was accused of being a cult leader today. One of my subscribers was contacting me over on Instagram and stuff like that. Just caught up in part of a conversation, and he was having a row with not a row with his other half, but a very intense conversation. She says, "You're just like that cult fellow, that Grant Torino over there. You're just not doing that." It's not like, no, I can form my own opinion. I'm just listening to what he says, but it's trickling out now. Again, another fracture and another part of the divide and conquer. Bruce, we're spilling over our time there. I'm going to have to let you go. Just a quick one. Those of you viewing in live chat, we're wrapping up here around about, what time have we got there, Bruce? 20:48. Right about 9:30 tonight, I'd say around 20 to 10. This broadcast will be uploaded and premiering over on YouTube. And I am told that should the kinder and the children be in the beds, that Bruce might join us in the live chat after the show. You can talk with Bruce over there as we recant our interview here today and go, I can't believe I said that. Oh, I can't believe I look like that. Bruce, I'll let you go, brother.
Take care. Great.
God bless. Okay, live chat, before I let you go, because I always do, please, if you thought this conversation was of any value, don't forget, hit that like button. Also, if you're new to the show, hit the subscription button and the bell. You'll be reminded of future broadcasts here in the Grand Torino. And if you could, please leave your thoughts, comments, and witticisms in the comment section down below. We are now demonetized, as we like to remind you, but we are not demoralized. And thank you all for your continued support over the Grand Torino website, World Wide Web, grandtorino.ie, and using our snail mail, PO Box 13179 in Wicklow. Much appreciated. Look forward to talking to you all over there. D-Live, Twitch, thank you very much for your company. And it's just dawned on me, D-Live and Twitch, that you are really only getting that one perspective of me looking blankly down into the bottom left-hand corner of the screen as I was there. But you're not getting to see the interaction or the camera view of Bruce Teakin. You weren't able to capture the full glory of that magnificent ginger beard that Margaret reminds us of, that all Scots are quite capable of growing up. They grow some magnificent beards up there, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen. They grow some I nearly cursed there, because the Scots are often one to do. Junkers, let's just says cheerio, goodbye to Ta from D-Live. Also, 5 Lamps girl. I like it. Steve O, sorry to hear all you do, and a couple of comments in there with sad news because of the nursing home situation. Anyway, I love you and leave you. I have no stream in the morning from me. Tuesday morning is our day off, but I will return and see you tomorrow evening. Possibly give everybody a chance to get through this horde of video drops that we have produced today. But again, we want to thank you all again for your continued company on this journey. Lovers of liberty, observers of reality, whatever the heck is going on. But we keep going. We remind you, 16 days towards the November elections in the United States, when at least I think we might hit some sort of a breaking point. But we're on a roller coaster journey now for the next 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just buckle in, and let's just get deal with it. Okay, I'll see you again tomorrow evening. Take care. Thanks very much for joining us.